Don't let your mind wander off. Let it be with yourself. Today is Āsāḷha Pūjā Day. Many of you are here at the temple. The hall is small. We can only accommodate so much. There are many outside the hall. Today is a very important day. For Luangpu, the important Buddhist day is one is Visakha Pūjā Day, is the birth of the Buddha. And the second day is Āsāḷha Pūjā Day, is today, is when is the day starting of the turning the wheel of Buddhism, when there is Sangha. There is Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, and started to spread out the Dhamma teaching. So today, commemorate the day that Buddhism have all three gems, the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha. To have the Buddha existent is quite rare. And on Āsāḷha Pūjā Day, he completes his work that he has started turning the wheel of Dhamma. He started to teach. On Āsāḻha Pūjā Day, the first monk arise. There's only one monk. The first sermon is called Dhammacakka Vattana Sutta. That is when the wheel turns. Once the wheel starts turning, there is no stopping. No one can object the Dhamma's teaching. On his first sermon, the key takeaways, there are two key takeaways. The first one is the middle path. The second one is the Four Noble Truths. The middle path is about avoiding two extremes. The first one is letting the mind indulge in sensual pleasure or letting the mind lost. That is not toward the path of liberation. The second one is self-mortification, giving yourself a hard time. This second one really battle what was believed back then, that a lot of people thought that, who practiced thought that to be liberated from suffering, they have to torture themselves. So in the first sermon, the Buddha taught the middle path, not to be lost, get indulged in the sensual pleasure, and not to do the self-mortification. Before he became the Buddha, when he was a prince Siddhartha enjoyed he had all the sensual pleasure given to him, and then he realized that all this happiness was unsubstantial, so he decided to leave the palace and try to practice At first, he did a lot of self-mortification. He did not eat. He tortured himself until he almost died. One day, when he was in a very bad shape, there was a boy who had a pet goat. This boy saw Prince Siddhartha who was in a very bad shape. So the boy came with the goat and gave Prince Siddhartha the goat milk. So he survived. And he realized that torturing himself will yield to nothing. And he understood the truth that it should be the middle path. And then he started to follow the middle path and finally liberated and attained Nibbana. At first, he thought to himself, how can people understand this truth? Many masters say the same thing too. This truth is quite difficult to attain. At first, the Buddha thought that it would be too difficult for the people in the world to understand the truth. And then there was a Brahma that came down from heaven. But in another text, it is said that because he had been collected many metta for many, many lifetimes, this make him realize that he should help out other beings. Luangpu thinks that in the text about the metta, the metta that he collected for many, many lifetimes, changed his mind that he should share this knowledge, share the truth with other beings so they can be liberated. That feels more right than having the Brahma ascend down from the heaven and beg him to teach other beings, to share the Dharma with other beings. Because the Buddha can just say no. Many of the Arahants, after they are liberated, they thought that how could other beings understand this truth? It's very difficult. And then many of them realized that, but I was like them before, but now I am liberated, then others can be liberated too. So their hearts, their mind are like that because they have collected, they have a lot of metta in their mind. This also happened to many of the masters. Many masters realize that if I can do it, others might be able to do it too. So Lord Buddha, after he attained Dharma, he thought to himself, who should be the first group who should be the first he should teach? Those should be the ones who have practiced, have collected have much faculty so they can understand the truth. So he thought of his previous masters. Kind of like what Luangpu had experienced before. When first Luangpu taught about how to observe the mind, there was a lot of resistance. After the Buddha was enlightened, he remembered his two masters. But those two masters, they have just passed away. In some texts, they said the angels told him that those two masters have passed. But in another text, it said that after the Buddha just think where his masters are, he would know that. You don't have to argue with all the text. It would give you so much headache. So just take the core from the text. So after the Buddha found out that his two masters passed away, and then he thought of his disciples, his 5 disciples. One was Danya Gondanya. Danya Gondanya, he was one of the ascetic who predict Prince Siddhartha that he would become the great religious leader. Other would predict that Prince Siddhartha would become either the great religious leader or the great king. But Ganya Gondanya, he was the only one who predicted that one day Prince Siddhartha will become the great religious spiritual leader. So when the Buddha met up with his 5 disciples, at first those 5 did not believe the Buddha because they thought that self-modification is the way to be liberated from suffering, is the way to enlighten. But then later on, they listened to the Buddha's first sermon. That's why the first sermon was about the middle path and to avoid the 2 extremes. One is to avoid indulging in the sensual pleasure, letting the mind be lost. The second one is the self-modification, torturing yourself to controlling. And the second key takeaway from the first sermon is the Four Noble Path. And the Eightfold Path. First of the Eightfold Path, we have to have the right view. We have to understand the right theory toward the liberation. This is called Sammatiti in Thai. The Buddha taught first, he also taught about the right thought. So we can have the right mindset. And followed by the right speech. The right thought is also included that most of the time we are lost in the sensual pleasuring kind of thought, like where are we going to eat next? Which coffee shop should I go to next? That is being lost in sensual pleasure type of thought. We still clinging to the sensual pleasures toward the eye, ears, nose, tongue, the body contact. If we are stuck here, if we are just clinging to here, we cannot go forward toward the path of this liberation. Another wrong thought is that if we still have anger or vengeance toward anyone, that type of mind is saddened. It cannot be liberated if we still get stuck in feeling angry vengeance
อันนี้ก็ไม่สามารถเดินเส้นทางของอริยมรรคได้
with this type of mind you cannot walk on this path toward the liberation so the right thoughts including don't let your thinkings be stuck in indulge yourself in sensual pleasure don't let your thoughts get stuck in feeling vengeance feeling angry toward others
ท่านทั้งห้าฟังธรรมจักรนะว่าได้โสดาบันพวกเราฟังแล้วเราก็ไม่
The 5 disciples after they heard the first sermon
วันๆก็คิดถึงแต่เรื่องอย่าหาความสุขสนุกสนาน
and after he heard about
หรือบางคนก็อาฆาตแค้น
the first sermon Dhammacak Vatana Sutta they started to walk in the path toward a liberation many of the practitioners when they practice they still try to control themselves they're still stuck in the self-mortification and the next in the Eightfold Path is the right speech if you think about how to break the precept easiest way to make the precept is usually through the speech is that when we lie or when we say something to make other people get into fights we say something to make people misunderstanding each other or you say bad words Luangpu noticed that in the past when Luangpu was a teenager when Luangpu was in college a lot of people in his group that they always use bad words to talk to each other but Luangpu usually speak politely to his friends Luangpu felt that they use such a bad word to speak to each other after Luangpu hang out with this group of friends he started to use bad words too and then Luangpu noticed that in the present nowadays women use more bad words than men what happened this is a evolution women use bad words more than men men are more polite these days when Luangpu had to travel somewhere and had to stop by say the gas station Luangpu saw that so saying bad words that is not the right speech many of you and another one for the that is not the right speech is that we say something that is not needed to be said and this day you don't even have to speak out you can type onto the social network to communicate you don't really have to speak out you can just type these days or you can make the sign the sign so if you still lost in the internet you still make a lot of comments on internet saying things that you don't need to say it will result in your mind will be restless and sometimes it also lead to a misunderstanding like if you support people who spread out the wrong message wrong idea that is a lot of karma a lot of negative karma like for example if you only support if you support the wrong master, the master that spread out the wrong words, the wrong idea, the wrong view, that is a very bad karma. So the right speech is not to lie, not to say things that make people get angry at each other, not to spread out the wrong idea, the wrong words. So after you have the right view, the right thought, the right speech, next is the right action. The right action is about upholding precepts. Refrain yourself from harming other beings. Refrain yourself from stealing, taking others' belonging and other people's loved ones. For some, if you rob them, they are not as angry as taking their daughters away. So that's why the Buddha came up with the 5 precepts that to refrain yourself from harming other beings, from taking something they love away from them. If you do that, there is negative karma. But if you have upholding these precepts, your mind will be peaceful. It will be easily peaceful. And you can keep walking toward this path of liberation. And the next thing is the right livelihood, is to live our life correctly. What is living life correctly? For example, for monks, to live for the rightly food for the monks, they have to become a beggar. They have to ask for food, but they also have to be polite when asking for food. Many of you came and told Luangpo that they have a lot of faith of this monk, and they vow to give anything to that monk if that monk asks. But it turned out that that monk never stopped asking. There was one lady who had many cars, and she vowed that to give him the cars whenever that monk needed to travel. That monk ended up traveling all the time, every day. So that monk was asking for a ride every day. Or a monk asked to give like a very expensive amulet. So that lady came to ask Luangpo, like, what to do, because I already gave my words. And Luangpo said, it's easy. You just have to go back and tell that person that I'm not going to do it anymore. It's not karma. Is that you're not letting them indulge in the defilements. So it's even better for that person. So the right livelihood for monks is that they have to be a beggar, but they have to be polite. And if you vow yourself to do something for a monk, you have to have the limitation. You have to set the limitation. Like for example, you can say that if you want to give to something to the monk, you can give with limitation. You have to be precise how much you want to give, and also the duration, that maybe you will help out for 4 months. That's enough. But if you want to vow to Luang Po, you can vow for the rest of your life, because Luang Po always forget after you make the vow, because Luang Po never asks anyone for anything, not even for 1 cent. Since when Luang Po was a lay person, when Luang Po was a lay person and he went to this temple in Tak province, his companion stop by that temple. He took a lot of food, and after they got back in the car, they didn't stop ever again. Luang Po did not eat then, and he did not know that they were not going to make any pit stop. But Luang Po did not ask that person for any food. So Luang Po and also Mata Nut, they never ask for anything. If you meet anyone who keep asking you things, that they are not real monks. They are not the true practitioners. But for lay people, you should not ask so much either. Like a lot of people do not want to work, but they want to ask the government to pay them. If you are still a lay person, you have to earn a living, honest living. That is the right livelihood for the lay people. When you have the right livelihood, your job will not harm others people and do not harm yourself. So those first 5 is about theory, having the right theory, having the right view of how of this path of liberation. Next thing is the effort. So the next thing in the effort path is the right effort. Is making the effort to let go of the unwholesomeness and cultivate wholesomeness to arise. If you already have some wholesomeness, find a way to prosper that wholesomeness. Find a way for that wholesomeness to prosper. For example, when we practice, when you practice sitting meditation and walking meditation, when you practice, it's not about trying to show off to other people, but it's about training to be mindful and knowing so of your defilement. So if you are doing the walking meditation and somebody is looking at you and now you want to look good and walk more proper to show off, that is the defilement. You have to be aware of that. So we practice so we can battle with the defilement and to cultivate wholesomeness. How to be free from the defilement is the right mindfulness. After the right effort, we understand what we have to do is to practice, to cultivate wholesomeness. The next thing is to have the right mindfulness. This is one of the key things of the practice. The Buddha taught about the 4 foundation of mindfulness. Every time you are mindful, all the wholesome minds arise with mindfulness or sati. When we practice, we are mindful of our body and our own mind. So be mindful, be aware of your body and your mind. That is the training. In this generation, a lot of people have we do not have a lot of faculties. We have stronger defilements. So if you run into beautiful people, sometimes you get lost in them. People with a lot of faculties, when they see beautiful people, they realize that is just a body. A body is just something with a skill, with covered with skin. Inside it's just something foul, dirty. But for most people, when they see beautiful people, they say, "Oh, that person is so beautiful. They have a good physique. They look so good." So that's why the Buddha, the masters, taught us to only be mindful of our own body and our own mind, not pay attention outward. To practice mindfulness or sati, you can have the object of meditation. It can be either the body or your mind. With the full foundation of mindfulness, that you can observe the physical form, the mental form, the feeling. But the Dharma is more difficult to observe. You don't have to worry about that for now. You can observe the body. For example, right now, you can be aware of your body. The body is breathing in, breathing out. You can be aware of that. You can be aware of your mind. So sati or mindfulness is to know, to recognize, to be aware of the body and the mind. As you practice the full foundation of mindfulness, the first goal is that so we can be aware. So you can train by knowing so as you breathe in and out. If you can be aware of your breath, then you can be aware of yourself all day long. If you can be aware of your body movement as you sit, stand, laying down, walk, you will be aware all day long. So this is the training of the full foundation of mindfulness. The more you practice, the more you can be aware all day long. When you have the right mindfulness or the right sati, when you cultivate that a lot, it will lead to the right samadhi. Not a lot of people understand the right samadhi. Many people, when they sit and they say they are sitting and doing the meditation, but they fall in the two extremes. One is that either their mind is just lost or they are just controlling their mind. They are not practicing in the middle path. So the correct samadhi or samma samadhi is in the middle path. All the Eightfold Path as you practice, they all have to be in middle path. So if you keep being mindful of your body and your mind, you can be mindful of the feeling of the body and the mind. Either it is feeling good, feeling bad, feeling neutral. You can observe your mind. Is it happy, unhappy, or neutral? Luang Por used that when he first started to practice. Because Luang Por have a temperament of getting angry easily. So Luang Por observed that when the mind is with anger, or without anger. As the anger arises, he knew so. When the anger still exists for a while, he knew so. When the anger falls away, he would know so. When you observe the feeling that arises, you cannot observe at the present moment, but you observe it right after the defilement arises. So when the anger arises, it followed by the mind that knows the anger that just arises. So when Luang Po started to practice, Luang Po would know so of the anger that just arises. And then it moved on, Luang Po moved on to other type of defilement, like when he would know so when the lust just arises, he would know so when greed just arises. After he kept knowing so, he would know more defilements. And he would be aware of his mind in more detail. So every time Luang Po noticed that every time you come into contact with something, feeling arises. When feeling is pleasure, then another defilement would come in, arise simultaneously with the feeling, is that the lust would arise with pleasure feeling. Or when you have unpleasure feeling, then anger would arise with the unpleasure feeling. So Luang Po started to observe his mind in more detail of the defilement of the feeling. Also, and then he started to see the clinging, the attaching to the objects. Every time there's a clinging, there's wanting, the mind clings to the object right away. Every time the mind starts to cling, when there's wanting, the mind started to cling, then suffering. That is the form of suffering. Luang Po started to see when the mind grabs the mind. The mind is grabbing all the objects. Many people, when they practice, they see that the mind is grasping their eyes, ears, nose, tongue to observe the other objects. The hardest one to see that the mind is grabbing the mind itself. When the mind is grabbing to the eye, ears, nose, tongue, and the body and the mind itself, that's when it is called existence arise. And this is also the form of suffering. What are we clinging to the most? We are clinging to the 5 aggregates. So the Buddha also explained what aggregates are. And he also concluded that the 5 aggregates are the form of suffering. So you have the right mindfulness and right samadhi. You will also attain the noble mind and a stable observer. The correct samadhi is not about, it doesn't mean calmness or peacefulness. It's about the mind being stable without trying to force the mind to be stable. And the mind is stay within itself without you trying to force it to stay. If there's any trying, that would fall into another extreme, the extreme of self-mortification. So you let the mind wander off. That is letting the mind indulge in sensual pleasure. But if you try to control, if there's a trying, there is a controlling, that is the self-modification. So avoid the two extremes. This is why Luangpo started to teach about the two extremes. To be aware when the mind is lost, to be aware when the mind is starting to control, start to hold. So a lot of people, when they practice as they sit and meditate, many are lost into these two extremes. One, either let their mind be lost in the dream, or they are controlling themselves. This is why Luangpo started to teach about these two extremes, the mind getting lost and over-focusing, over-controlling. A lot of people did not understand Luangpo's way of teaching. They thought that Luangpo taught wrong. They asked why Luangpo did not taught about Bhutto, doing the Bhutto mantra, or sitting and meditate. This is why Luangpo focus about the middle path since he started to teach. If you practice correctly, then this will lead to the right liberation. There also are terms called Sammayana, that is to have the right wisdom to see the three characteristics. There's many course retreat that say that this is a vipassana course retreat, but those people who go in, a lot of time they cannot cultivate vipassana because they do not have the correct mindfulness and correct samadhi. They have to understand the Eightfold Path, and all the Eightfold Path have to be in the middle way. When you have the right samadhi, then you will have the wisdom toward the liberation. But you also need to have the right mindfulness or the right sati. When you cultivate enough right samadhi, then it will lead to the right wisdom, and one can be liberated in this path. In the Eightfold Path, why did the Buddha say that you have to be in the middle path? For example, with the right livelihood, if you're not in the middle path, you may be greedy and never have enough. And you might be greedy and you cannot go forward toward this path of liberation when the mind is greedy. When your mind is liberated, you will understand the Four Noble Paths. The Lord Buddha taught in very detail about Four Noble Paths. What is suffering? For the beginners, he would say that suffering is to get old, get sick, and die, to run into something that you do not like, to run into something that makes you uncomfortable. And the way to what to do is to know what is suffering. But in detail, the Buddha would say that the suffering is the 5 aggregates, and to know suffering is to know the 5 aggregates. Because everything falls under the 5 aggregates. What is getting old is our physical form. That is the physical form type of aggregates. And feeling sad is the defilement, is the feeling aggregates. But what to do is to know the suffering. To know the suffering is to know the 5 aggregates. The Buddha said, to know suffering is not to run away from suffering. A lot of people try to run away from suffering. They beg to be free from suffering. But the duty for the Buddhist, for the practitioner, the Buddha said to us that our duty is to know the suffering. So when you practice and you know your last life, let's say you know the future, that is not knowing the suffering. If you know your past life, who was your wife in the previous life, that is knowing the suffering. That is not knowing the suffering. To know the suffering is to know the aggregates, know the 5 aggregates. Once you truly know the 5 aggregates, you can let them go. You can lay them down. After you can let them be free of the 5 aggregates, then one can be liberated. So how to know the 5 aggregates is, or to know your body and your mind, is that you need to have the right sati or right mindfulness and the right samadhi. When you have the right samadhi, you will also attain the mind that is a stable observer. With the mind that is a stable observer, you will see that all 5 aggregates, they fall under the 3 characteristics. They are subjected to the 3 characteristics. You will see that all the 5 aggregates, they are suffering, non-self, impermanent. That is the wisdom. The previous king asked Master Tet, he asked, what is the key to the precepts, to the wisdom, to samadhi? Master, Venerable Master Luangpu Tet replied, replied that you have to have intention to uphold the precepts. The word intention is that if you have, for Master Luangpu Tet, it means that when you have sati, wholesomeness will arise and you will refrain yourself from breaking the precept on your own. The past king, he was very good in practicing samadhi. He was able to enter a deep level of samadhi. As you practice, if you have the knowledge of knowing the heaven, knowing different realms, knowing the past life, that is not following knowing the suffering. because it's not knowing your own body and your own mind. If you can really know the body and the mind or the five aggregates, you can let them go. You can be liberated from them. That is how to work toward this path of enlightenment. If you can see that this body is a form of suffering, most people do not see that. They see that sometimes the body is bring you pleasure, sometimes it bring you displeasure. And also the same goes to the mind. Sometimes the mind is happy, sometimes the mind is not happy. But if you still feel that it still gives you happiness, the mind still struggle, try to attain this happiness to last. So be aware of your body and your mind. If you keep being aware, you will see that there's nothing but suffering with this body. If you breathe in, take a breath, long deep breathe in, the body has to exhale. Otherwise, it will die. If you sit for a long time, you also have to shift your body to run away from suffering. For example, you feel itchy, so you scratch yourself. That's body moving. That is also to run away from suffering. The body movement blind us from seeing the truth that this body is nothing but suffering. So from now on, be aware, be mindful of the body. As you breathe in and out, no self. As you walk, you sit, you lay down, no self. And then one day you will see that this body is nothing but suffering. This is why it has to keep moving. It has to run away from suffering from time to time. So be aware of the body. Let's see if this body is really happy or unhappy. Is really give you happiness or unhappiness. Let's say if you are if you buy a very comfortable chair, the one that can give you a massage. Let's say if you sit there for a long time, not moving, will you suffer? It will suffer. Another example, you give yourself a massage. You get a massage all day long. Instead of giving you pleasure, it will give you body ache. So if you pay attention to your body, be aware of your body, be mindful of your body, you will see that the body is nothing but suffering. The same goes to when you observe the mind. If you practice in detail, you will see that there's nothing but suffering that comes with the mind. Usually it just suffer a lot of suffer less. But for most people, they feel that sometimes the mind is happy or unhappy. But if you practice, you will see that the mind has a lot of burden all the time. It's working all the time without breaks, without rest. Sometimes the mind has to listen. Sometimes the mind have to look. Sometimes the mind have to feel. Sometimes the mind has to know the thoughts. It's working all the time. It is exhausting when you see that. Oh, the body is also working all the time. You think that after work you go home and you take a rest laying down, but actually the body is still walking, it's still working. The heart is still beating. That's the same goes to the mind. The mind has to perceive emotions, different objects all the time. Imagine if you have a wife that likes to complain all day long. Will that be happy or unhappy? So the mind carries a lot of burden all the time. As you practice, you will see that 5 aggregates are nothing but burden, nothing but suffering. Arahants, they can let go of the 5 aggregates permanently. After they let them go, they do not grasp on to the 5 aggregates never again. So that's why they are free. Their mind is liberated. But most people, they're still grabbing to these 5 aggregates. That's why the mind struggles all the time. But before you can see that, you have to see suffering. Clearly see the suffering. When you clearly see the suffering, you can let them go. If you can clearly see your body, that the body is nothing but suffering, you will not wish the body to be comfortable, to be happy anymore. If you clearly see that the mind is nothing but suffering, you will not wish for the mind to be happy, to not suffer, because it's impossible, because the mind and the body themselves are the form of suffering. If you truly can see that, there's no more wanting the body and the mind to be happy. The mind no longer struggle trying to make the body and the mind happy. After the mind can let them go, then there's no more struggle. The mind can truly be liberated. So we can truly see the suffering. You can let go of the cause of suffering. And that marks the end of suffering. That is the path of the Four Noble Path. This is the path toward the liberation. That is all the Dhamma talk for today. The 5 first disciples didn't hear this long sermon. We have heard more than 500 sermons, but still listen more. Don't give up. Don't feel discouraged. Most people who liberated in a short time, because they have been practicing, they have persevered for a long time already. It's like they have been working so hard now that they are rich. But we just started, so we still feel that that's still a long way to go. But right now, we are still poor in Dhamma wise. So we have to work on this, keep collecting so we can be rich. So work on this is like, for example, like develop ourselves, uphold the precepts, practice. It may feel difficult today, but it will be easier tomorrow. I mean, in the future. But everyone wants something easy. But if you want something easy, you will be stuck in this cycle of suffering. This evening, there is a candlelight procession ceremony. If you do not have time, you can do it yourself at home. And at home, you can practice, offer this practice to the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. So let's give it a try. That today, we are going to be mindful all day long and offer the practice to the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Let's not be lost in the defilement today. Let's not let the defilement win today. Let's practice and think as if that we are walking, following the path that the Buddha has led us. The Buddha is right in front of us, and we are following his path toward liberation. So let's do the walking meditation today and set your mind like as if you are walking after the Buddha.
เจ้าอาวาส
Next,
วานให้หลวงพ่อ
the abbot of
เชิญผู้
of the
เกี่ยวข้อง
temple
ประ
ask
ชุมเตรียมงานฝังลูกนิมิตมี
ask for
คุณ
those
ครู
who
อา
have
สาฬสุยวิมลชมพูแล้วใครอีกหมอเบน
those people who have to help out in the next ceremony of the bearing
แล้วพวกทีมช่างอ่ะ
the orbs that mark
เชิญท่านเลย
the
เชิญ
the temple's area have a meeting after this talk. For others, you can go home.